Hi, I'm Julian Baird, photographer and filmmaker from Devon, and welcome to Discovering Dartmoor. A few years ago, I asked myself the questions, what do I know about Dartmoor? What makes this place so unique? When I couldn't answer those questions, I made a commitment to myself to not only see more of Dartmoor, but to learn more about it. And from that commitment, Discovering Dartmoor was born. A 5-part video series where I explore and photograph 24 of Dartmoor's finest locations and speak to some of Dartmoor's most passionate ambassadors so I could find out for myself what makes Dartmoor so special. Coming up in this episode, I tell you a story about a giant and some cream teas. I look at some of Dartmoor's engineering marvels. I visit one of Dartmoor's most photographed houses, and I chat to Dartmoor's daughter, Emma Cunis. But let's start this episode with a visit to King's Tor, where I find something I never expected to find on Dartmoor.
There are numerous routes to King's Tor, but I've decided to park at Maryvale Bridge and walk in from there. King's Tor soon comes into sight, but I've come along this way because I wanted to stop off somewhere first. Just a few hundred metres from the road, I find a pair of double stone rows thought to be from the Bronze Age. The longest of these stone rows is 260 metres long. The stone rows are separated by a leat. I also find a kistvaens, which is a type of burial chamber. In the 19th century, a farmer decided to unfortunately take a slice out of it to make a gatepost. Just south of the stone rows, I find a stand-in stone known as the menhir. This one rises to 3.2 metres high. It's quite the sight. My journey then takes me through some disused tin workings. After the river crossing, I join the route of the old Princetown to Plymouth Railway, where I find the remains of an old railway hut. I could have then turned left and ascended straight up to King's Tor, but there was something I really wanted to see.
Amazing, there's just bits of history lying about Dartmoor if you just open your eyes and you see them. These bits of granite, these finely crafted bits of granite, are called corbels, and they were used on London Bridge, which I think was built in 1831, but then they decided that they needed to widen the bridge in 1903, I think it was, because there was so much traffic using it. So these corbels were used to widen the bridge, but unfortunately the bridge started to sink under the weight, and then it was famously bought by an American and shipped over to America. Now these were spares but never used, but unfortunately I think during the transportation process for the bridge to go into America, one of these corbels was broken, so someone had to rush back here, pick one of these up and take it over to America. But it's just fascinating that something that's related to London Bridge is just lying about here in Dartmoor. Amazing. Wow, just look at that view. I know I say that all the time, but that's amazing. I can see Plymouth there in the distance. I can see out to the sea. What else can I see? I've got Ingra Tor over there. And then over in this direction, I've got Great Staple Tor, Ruse Tor, Great Mist Tor. The flag's out, so the army must be doing some live firing. But it's a beautiful evening up here with some wonderful light. So I'm very much, now that I'm here at King's Tor, and I have explored a little bit of the surrounding area, I'm going to focus on the photography tonight, I think, because this is it's quite an expansive tour here, but there's lots of nice, interesting rock formations that I think I can make some interesting photographs of. So that's going to be my main focus, I think, for the rest of the evening. Well, I've had a fantastic evening standing up here in King's Tor, admiring the view and capturing some photographs. It's a tremendous area because there's so much to learn about it, whether it's those stone rows and the standing stone down there, or just some more recent history, whether it's quarrying and the railway line, and of course, those bits of London Bridge. What a find they are. It's just amazing to know how much history is in such a small area. And I get the feeling as well that I've barely scratched the surface, so I'm going to have to return to this part of Dartmoor again really soon to see what else I can discover. But until the next location, I'll see you then. Old railway lines, stone rows, standing stones, and parts of London Bridge. It never fails to surprise me what you can find in Dartmoor when you go exploring. While I've only just started my exploration of Dartmoor, there are some people that have spent a lifetime exploring Dartmoor. People like Emma Cunis, whose knowledge and passion for Dartmoor is evident to anyone who speaks to her. And that's exactly what I did. So let's join Emma as we go for a walk around one of her favourite Dartmoor spots. Dartmoor is an amazing place. There's thousands of years of human history. There's got home to a rich variety of flora, fauna and wildlife. It has some fascinating tales of folklore. And of course, don't forget its amazing geology. Now, for most people, learning about one of those subjects would be enough, but not for my guest today, who spent her life learning about Dartmoor, and now she shares that passion and knowledge with the people that visit here to help them learn, heal, or just have fun. Emma, nice to meet you. How are you?
You too. Thank you so much.
That's
Very
great.
good. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. So, tell me, where are we today? Let's start with the location we've come, because this is a bit of a, you know this area quite well, don't you?
I do. I was lucky enough to grow up locally to here, so this was one of our stomping grounds,
Yeah.
let's say, as children. So we're on Chagford Common, looking over towards beautiful Watton Tor up there on the horizon. There's farms just down here in the valley, and this beautiful expanse of landscape and heathers in the summer. You can't quite see that now, but a lovely place.
And you come here quite a lot, don't you?
I do,
Yeah.
yes. This is my favourite place to come, especially when I have downtime. So for the rest of the year, I'm walking out across Dartmoor, taking visitors all over the place. But this is one of my favourite places to be.
I mean, the scenery is it's truly wonderful, isn't it? The expanse, we can see all the tors there in the background. And we've got your dog Sky with us today. Hello.
Good girl.
I bet she loves it up here as well, doesn't
She does. Sky is an ex-sheepdog, so she's very well behaved and trained to
Better behaved than my dog Monty, I tell you. That's a good girl.
to be up here, especially as a guide, because I wanted to be able to focus on my groups and the people that I'm with, rather than worrying that my dog was going to be chasing or doing something bad.
So we're going to go on a bit of a walk around some of the areas, I guess, you have quite a personal connection to. So where do you think we might go first?
I'd love to take you up to the stone rows. There's a collection of stone rows that are part of a larger ceremonial complex, so I'd love to take us there.
Oh, great. Let's go then.
All right.
Come on, Sky. We'll rejoin Emma a bit later in the episode, where she'll be telling us about those stone rows and some of her memories of growing up near Dartmoor. But first, let's head to Lints Tor, where along the way I stop at Dinner Tor to tell you a story.
Before I start the long walk to Lints Tor, I take some time to admire the view of Roe Tor and the rolling hills of Dartmoor. I leave the car at the foot of West Mill Tor and start the 3.5 kilometre walk along the military road. In the distance I can see East Mill Tor, Steeperton Tor and Oke Tor. As I walk along the road, I spot an object I recognise and I make a detour to investigate. Tucked in the meadow of cotton grass, I find a boundary marker. Remembering what I had learnt about boundary markers on my journey to Higher Tor, I know that the marking OPB means Okehampton Parish Boundary. Back on the road, it's not long until I reach Dinner Tor.
Well, I have unfortunately reached the end of the Melchie Road. That's the end of the easygoing walking. I've got Lints Tor just over there, I can see it. But right here, I've got Tor. Now, while it does have some nice horizontal jointing, that's those horizontal lines there, it's not the world's most photogenic tor, I have to admit, but it does come with an interesting story all about cream teas. Let me explain. I've got a little seat here, a little seat to tell you a story about Tor. So you may be wondering, what has Tor got to do with cream teas? Let me tell you the story. Now, the story does have a number of variations. I did do some research and there are varying descriptions on the story, but I'll keep it roughly to the core of what the main line of the story is. So there was a giant. Giants used to live all about Devon and Cornwall apparently, but there was a giant that lived here and he had 4 wives. But one of the wives was considerably prettier and a much better cook. But, you know, let's excuse the way that people judged marriages back then. But the other wives got quite jealous of this wife because she was such a good cook and all that kind of stuff. So, in order to keep the peace as such, that giant sent that wife to live in a cave on the Cornish coast. Yes, charming, I know. And but what he used to do is he used to sneak along there once a week to see her. Now, while she was staying in her cave, if you like, she managed to get the attention of a sailor on a boat. And he was in a bit of danger. He was potentially going to crash into the rocks along the coastline, but she managed to help him stay away from that. And then, as a thank you, he came along and spoke to her and gave her the recipe for a cream tea. Now, some of the variations of the story say it was just a recipe for clotted cream, others say it was for the full cream tea. But that, you know, that doesn't matter. So she started making these cream teas so that when her giant husband came to visit her once a week, he'd have this cream tea. And he loved that cream tea so much that he decided to bring her back home to Tor. Now, obviously, the other 3 wives weren't particularly happy about this, but once they tasted the cream tea, they were sold as well. So that's how Tor became associated with the cream tea. Now, is that fact or is that fiction? To be honest, it doesn't really matter. It's just a nice story about cream teas. Now, Lints Tor. I'm hungry now. I could do with a cream tea.
Without the road to follow, I have to make my own route across the moorland for the final kilometre to Lints Tor.
Well, I've got Tor just behind me there, and I've come down the hill where you see the cattle grazing there. But that just bottom bit there, where the grass thickens up, I think it's probably quite marshy down there. Fortunately, it's not rained for ages, so the ground is really dry, but it's quite treacherous. There's holes that you just can't see, and a couple of times my foot disappeared and I fell over. So short, but yeah, not particularly pleasant. Not like that Melchie Road, which was nice and easy to walk along. Anyway, Lints Tor is just there. Well, here we are. There's Lints Tor. What a sight. I'm going to enjoy having a little look around that, see what photographs I might be able to find. But before I do that, I'm going to have a bit of a rest. I'm going to enjoy the view. It's been a bit of a walk, so I might as well enjoy the view. Over there, I can see Fir Tor, commonly known as Dartmoor's most remote tor. But I have to say, being here in Lints Tor, there's a great sense of isolation. There's nothing about, no one about, a couple of sheep, that's about it. I do feel quite alone, quite isolated, but that's also quite a nice feeling as well. So I'm going to have a little rest and enjoy it. There's only one thing that can spoil a beautiful summer's evening on Dartmoor, and that is a lack of wind. Because when there's no wind, that means the midges are out, and I've been getting attacked a few times. But never mind, let me tell you about some of the things about Lints Tor. First of all, I think it's its location. I've got rolling hills all about here, and then you've just got this hill here with this tor on. It just kind of stands out in the Rowan Hills. And then the other thing, when you have a closer look at it, is how fragile that tor looks. I've been to many tors across Dartmoor, and they always look solid, well-placed objects that wouldn't move. But that thing is heavily fractured, it's got lots of cracks in it, there's little bits of loose rock that you daren't move in case the tor falls on your head. And then looking around the landscape around here, there's lots of rock. Now this is called clitter, and that probably indicates that Lints Tor was a much bigger tor at some point, and it's been spread about all over the place. So yeah, striking tor, and I think it's one well worth photographing. Right, that's it. I can't take any more. I have to go. It's not that I'm not having a good time here, but the midges are driving me up the wall. But midges aside, I have to say I've had an extremely nice evening here. This tor is something else. What a find, what a location, just out here in the middle of nowhere in the Rowan Hills of Dartmoor. And I've really enjoyed capturing photographs of it as well. It's been a pleasant evening, there's been a cloud in the sky, soft light from the setting sun. What more could I want from an evening on Dartmoor? Well, maybe a few less midges. But I'm going to leave you. I'm going to do the long walk back to the car. I'll see you again soon. That was a fantastic evening at Lints Tor, despite the bugs. A great place to go if you want a bit of solitude. But it's also nice to have company while walking on Dartmoor. So let's rejoin my conversation with Emma, where she talks about a nearby burial chamber. So Emma, we've walked up along this, I believe is a stone row, but this one's of particular interest, isn't it?
It is. There's lots of stone rows in this area. In fact, there's lots of stone rows on Dartmoor. But this one ends in a beautiful concentric burial chamber. So these concentric rings. And there's burial chambers all over Dartmoor. The middle section, the granite box, the kistvaens, certainly from the early Bronze Age anyway, is typically oriented northwest, southeast.
Oh, right.
Late Bronze Age. And some of the findings in these burial chambers have been fascinating. There was the burial up at Whitehorse Hill that was discovered or rediscovered a few years ago, and there was an amber bead in there, tin studs on a necklace, beautiful armband woven from cowtail hair.
Wow.
It was a cremation burial, so they could tell that the shards of bone were from a young, most likely woman. And she was just buried with the most extraordinary grave goods. And I love to imagine these places as they would have been perhaps honoured by these people thousands of years ago.
And I think so sometimes people forget when they come to Dartmoor and they go to all the nice locations, is that there's a huge history here, isn't there? It spans thousands of years, and people have lived here for a very long time, haven't they?
They have. My dog's trying to tell me as well. People have been living on Dartmoor since at least the Mesolithic time. Mesolithic flints have been found up here, flint tools, and also charcoal in the peat, showing that people were burning patches of land, perhaps to grow pasture and then attract in the animals for hunting and other uses. And then Neolithic farmers came across here from Europe, and the land here and the climate was very conducive at the time to farming, a much warmer climate than we have today.
It's cold today, isn't it?
It's certainly cold today. Lovely though. So they started settling here, they brought sheep with them, and they started growing crops as well. Another wave of immigration, the Bronze Age people, the Beaker people again from Europe, and they started settling more permanently. And that's when we see some of the homes still in ruins today, left up here on Dartmoor out of stone.
It's absolutely fascinating, but I guess in more recent history, you grew up in Dartmoor, so I mean this is probably why you know a lot about this area. Can you tell me about your sort of early memories, your childhood that you spent up here in Dartmoor?
Yes, well the first few years we didn't live here actually, but we used to come here on holiday a lot because my grandmother was still here, of course. And my earliest memories actually are coming up to places like Tor, which we'll be going to in a moment, and playing, swimming in the rivers, having picnics in the sunshine, running around and just being the sense of freedom, I suppose.
This is such a wide open space. So it must have been amazing as a child being up here. I mean, just being almost let loose into the
Completely.
wilderness.
And then, of course, when we moved to mid Devon, we were up here nearly every weekend, holidays, and just playing. You know, we didn't have a lot of money when we were younger, so come rain or shine, our mother would make us go
You're
out.
up there, yep.
Plenty of picnics in the rain, soggy picnics in the rain. But really, such a sense of freedom and joy as a young child. And of course, every time I moved overseas and lived in different countries for work in my career, whenever I came home, I had to come to Dartmoor. I had to come for a walk and just feel that sense of vast expanse and freedom in my body.
Which you definitely get here. I mean, even myself, just being out here this morning, it's just such a wonderful feeling, isn't it? Just walking with you and seeing the landscape just invigorates the soul, doesn't it?
It really, it invigorates the soul is such a good phrase. For me, there's a physical health, fitness aspect, there's a mental well-being, and also a sort of spiritual connection as well. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I really do feel like the soul is completely nourished on every level. I can hear a skylark in the distance. You probably won't pick it up.
Probably won't pick it up, but we can definitely hear it. I mean, the Dartmoor makes a lot of noise as well, doesn't it? You know, you might be out in the middle of nowhere, but there's always something to hear as well.
There is, and there's so many different aspects to Dartmoor. Here you've got that vast open moorland feeling. You've got the beautiful wooded valleys and the copper gold flowing rivers. There's post-industrial landscape, lots of different archaeology to explore, and the different flora and fauna, and of course the livestock as well. I love the pony herds and
the
seeing
ponies,
them out and about, and the sheep and
always
cows.
something to see, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, this is really, and I think we're gonna follow the stone row up a bit. There's something a bit more, even more interesting up the top there, isn't there?
And a tale to tell.
A tale. Oh, I love a tale. How brilliant! Come on, then, let's go. It's amazing to talk to someone with such a deep connection to Dartmoor, and later on Emma's going to be telling me a fantastic story. Dartmoor is not only a place of natural wonders, but it is also home to some engineering marvels. But before we head to Meldon, here's a quick message from me. I just want to quickly interrupt this episode of Discovering Dartmoor to say a big thanks to you, the people that are watching. Discovering Dartmoor for me is a passion project, not a commercial venture or a profit-making exercise. Everything that went into this series was produced by me. All the planning, research, writing, scouting, on-location filming, interviews, photography and editing was all done just by me. I even did my own hair, makeup and wardrobe. But the best bit of all that work is that I get to share Discovering Dartmoor with you on YouTube for free forever. Now, if you've got this far through the episode, it probably means you're enjoying it. And if you are, then it makes all that hard work worth it. But you might also be saying, Julian, how can I show my support for this wonderful series? Well, there are 3 simple things you can do that would mean the world to me, and that's like, comment, and share. So, if you are enjoying this episode, you'll find a like button just underneath the video. Press that, and then just below that, you can also leave me a comment, preferably a nice one. But the most important and best thing you can do is to share the video. Let your friends, family or colleagues know about the series. Talk to them, WhatsApp them, share it in a Facebook group. However you do it, it would mean the world to me. But if you are really liking Discovering Dartmoor and you want to show your appreciation by buying me a cup of coffee, then that would be truly amazing. Just below this video, next to the like button, you'll find the thanks button. By clicking on that, you can make a one-time donation that, in all likelihood, I will actually spend in coffee. I love coffee. As a landscape photographer that loves photographing sunrise, I depend on coffee. It keeps me going. But please do like, comment and share. Right, thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the episode.
It's only a short walk from the car park onto Meldon Dam. There's barely a breath of wind in the air, and the reflections on the reservoir are outstanding. The big surprise, however, is when I reach the centre of the dam and I look over the edge. Looking down, I can see water cascading over the edge of the dam, to the river over 50 metres below. Torn between taking photos of the reflections in the water now or heading to get a better view of the cascading water over the dam, I decide on the latter and walk along the path. As the sun starts to rise and mist forms in the valley below, I know I've made the right decision.
During my journeys for Discovering Dartmoor, I've been lucky enough to see some amazing sights so far. And when I come to Meldon Reservoir, I thought, well, I'll get to see the reservoir, and I'll get to see the dam. But beyond my expectations, the water is overflowing. And now that alone would be enough to make me very happy. But there's also some mist flowing over the river there, in amongst the beautiful autumnal colours, and then just up in the sky, got some high-level cloud. It is almost ideal conditions for landscape photography. So before I tell you a little bit more about this area, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the most of this and capture some landscape photographs.
Feeling very happy, I decide to head back to the dam to see if those reflections I saw in the reservoir are still there. I was over the moon when I discovered they were.
I've come back up to the middle of the dam here to get these views of the reservoir. Well, I say views, it's just started raining actually. Just a minute ago, that was perfectly still and calm. It's like a sheet of glass and the reflections were perfect, but it just started to rain. But I actually managed to get the photographs before the rain shower came in, so I must be lucky today. But what a fantastic view. You can wander along the path there, I believe there's an island up there, and you can get to the upper reaches of some of those really high Dartmoor tors. Now this place was built in the 1970s, but the thing I'm really interested in is actually the thing I'm standing on. So I'm going to go and get a slightly different view. I spotted a set of steps down the side there, so I'm going to nip down to the base of the dam to have a look. Shall I see how many steps are? Let's count them. So where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I make it 190 steps, which obviously is fine coming down. That means I've got to get back up there. Never mind. Just take a look at that. It's a really good view down here. It's well worth coming down those steps. But it's beautiful, the way the water is coming over the top of the dam there, and it's coming down in these waves. It's really quite hypnotic almost. But the dam itself, I was reading at the top there, built in 1972. It's 200 metres long. It's at its highest point, 55 metres high. And they used 270,000 tonnes of concrete to build it. Because let's face it, it's going to have to be really strong to hold that massive water that's up there in that reservoir. But what a sight. I mean, I know I've been to some of the far reaches of Dartmoor, but this is certainly one of the most exciting man-made, engineered things that I've seen on Dartmoor. I'm going to leave this amazing bit of engineering behind, follow the river down to find another amazing bit of engineering. The next engineering marvel in Dartmoor that I want to have a look at is that bridge there, Meldon Viaduct. Let's go and take a closer look. Let's face it, it wouldn't be a fun Discovering Dartmoor location if I didn't have to do at least one water crossing. When I started this Discovering Dartmoor adventure, I had no idea there were so many bits of amazing engineering scattered across Dartmoor. But here you have another one, Meldon Viaduct. Built in 1874, it spans 165 metres across and at its highest point is 50 metres high. These days it's used as a cycle path, so I'm going to make use of that. I'm going to leave this little viewpoint, head up onto the bridge, and we'll see what the views are like. You'll be unsurprised to hear that the views up here are spectacular. I can see the dam with the water flowing over it. I can see the hills, the rolling hills of Dartmoor. It's got some low-level cloud hanging over there, but I've still got the sun on my face, got Meldon Quarry, got the railway line there. I've got the valley below, the woodland, and it's autumnal colours out into the distance towards Oakhampton. What a spot to finish on. I could have spent so much more time here. There's so much to discover. But I do have to finish up. But I'm going to spend a little bit extra time here and I'm going to enjoy that view. I'll see you next time. That was one of the most magical mornings I've ever had in Dartmoor. Watching the mist flow over the top of the dam and down the valley was stunning. And then those glassy reflections on the reservoir water. That is an experience that will not be easily beaten. Now, I can't wait to share the next bit of my conversation with Emma with you, but before I do, here's a quick message from me. I just want to interrupt this episode of Discovering Dartmoor to talk to you about the photography of Discovering Dartmoor. Throughout my Discovering Dartmoor journey, I've been capturing landscape photographs of the locations I have visited, some of which you will have already seen in this episode. And while I am very proud to share my Discovering Dartmoor landscape photographs in this video series, for me, the best way to view any photograph is in the printed format. We're all used to scrolling through photographs on social media platforms, but viewing a photograph in printed format is a totally different experience. It's a richer, more engaging experience. And that's why I'm incredibly excited to let you know that I've collected all 55 landscape photographs from the Discovering Dartmoor series and published them in this small softcover book, or as it's more commonly known these days, a zine. All 55 landscape photographs from the video series are included, from Arms Tour to Yes Tour and everything in between. The zine is printed professionally using high quality papers on both the cover and inner pages, ensuring my photographs are displayed in the best possible way. There's also an introduction written by myself and a foreword that has been written by Max Piper. Max has a deep connection with Dartmoor and is also the author of the book East Dartmoor's Lesser Known Tours. So I was delighted when he agreed to write the foreword for my publication. You'll also see Max feature in one of the Discovering Dartmoor episodes if you haven't seen him already. Landscape photography is my passion, and being able to publish this collection of Discovering Dartmoor photographs is one of the highlights of producing this series. If you'd like to purchase a copy, then just head to discoveringdartmoor.com where you can order one today. Now, one final thing, if you're looking for something a bit bigger, such as a print to hang on your wall, then there is also a limited collection of Discovering Dartmoor photographs to purchase as individual prints. Again, just head to discoveringdartmoor.com for more details. Thank you for your time, and now back to the episode. Emma, this is something else. What is this? Apart from a big lump of rock.
Oh, this is a being, a big lump of rock. What do you mean? This is a standing stone. There are lots of them all over Dartmoor. This one's a particularly impressive one, very tall. Of course, there's probably about another fifth or so underground as well. And it most likely would have been put up in the late Neolithic or the early Bronze Age. And it's potentially connected to another stone row. So you often find these big standing stones connected to stone rows or burial chambers. Sometimes they can be by themselves. So there's different theories about why they are here, what the purpose of them was. Perhaps they could have been used as way markers, for example, like a signpost. And today, in more modern times, it's been adapted and it's been marked. Can you see the inscription on your sign, I think? There's an inscription. There's
GP, Gidley
Parish,
Parish,
C for Chagford, and Duchy of Cornwall should be somewhere on here as well. There we go.
Yeah.
So there's a tale to tell about this particular stone.
Oh, I love a tale.
Oh, do you love a tale?
I do love a tale.
This is called the Long Stone, long meaning high or tall in the Dartmoor dialect. So the Long Stone. Once upon a time, as all good stories
Yeah.
begin, there was a peat cutter, and he wasn't from Dartmoor, he wasn't local, but he'd heard this story that if you went up to Greyweathers, the double stone circle, on Midsummer's Eve, and you waited until the sun went down, the stones, the rocks in the stone circle would turn into sheep. Greyweather
Yeah.
means a male castrated sheep. And if you could shear those sheep with a pair of shears that were hidden in a burial chamber, and you could do that before the sun rose on Midsummer's Day, the fleece would turn into gold. A wonderful tale. So he thought,
It's a
right, I'm going
cracking
to try
tale.
this.
Yeah.
So the story goes on forever. I won't go all
Yeah.
the way through it. But essentially, he gets these pairs of shears. He has to purify them,
Yeah.
clean them in the waters, and then he goes up to the stone circle, waits for the sunset, and the stones turn into sheep. He grabs a sheep and he tries to start shearing it. But remember, he's a peat cutter,
Yeah.
not a sheep shearer. So it's not his skill.
No.
And he starts to see the sun starting to rise, the light over the horizon. He thinks, oh no, I'm not going to make it. I'll have to let this go and try again next year.
Yeah.
So he runs to put the shears back in the burial chamber, clean them off. And as he's making his way back, the sun rises and he turns to stone. So this is a wonderful tale
So
of the
this-
long stone. This is him
Is this
turned
him?
to stone. And there's lots of myths and legends
Yeah.
on Dartmoor, and in particular some of them have warnings in them.
Yeah.
And I think this is one perhaps about not trying to make too much money or not trying to take
Not
advantage.
to be greedy. Yeah.
Exactly. So I rather love that tale.
That's,
So, yes.
that's a brilliant tale. As I said in my intro down there, Dartmoor's got some fascinating
Yes.
tales of folklore, and,
Yeah.
and this is a
Giants
cracking
and
example.
devil and witches and pixies and
Yeah.
ghosts and all sorts. And I think that's one of the things I love about this
Yeah.
landscape is it's a very mythic landscape. You've got the human history, you've got the beauty of the
Yeah.
natural world itself, and you've got this very mythic landscape filled with tales. And for me, it gives me a sense of
Yeah.
belonging and wonderment.
So, I mean, you spent quite a bit of time away from this area, didn't you, with your work, and then you came back. And is that when you really started learning about these tales of folklore? Were these things that maybe passed down to you as a child from your grandmother? When did you really move from this is my playground into I need to learn about this and understand the folklore and the geology? When was that turning
Yeah, that's
point?
a really good question because growing up, we were told a lot of the stories.
Yeah.
So I remember my mother, for example, as we were driving past Post Bridge over the cherry book, she would say, "Beware the hairy hands of Dartmoor," and the tale of the devil landing on the roof at Widdicombe Church and the hoof prints on the roof. So I remember these stories actually growing up. And if we were out on a walk or playing here, we would certainly get pointed out, this
Yeah.
is a stone circle, this is a stone row, there's an old building. But I didn't really know much about, I suppose, the names of places or the history of these places. So when I came home and finished my corporate career and moved back home to Devon, I started to really learn in much more depth, read lots of books, including my grandfather's books, which I hadn't been interested in before. I talked to my granny, she was still alive then, and so I heard a lot of the stories about the locals and the history and farming and more about the myths and legends as I've talked to locals again as well. So that's been a real joy, particularly, of course, as I've started guiding. I've had to learn so that I can share these the history and the stories with people here.
I guess you're constantly learning as well. There's
Always.
always going to be stuff to learn, always new stuff to learn, isn't there?
There is. I really wish this had been school growing up.
It would have been great, wouldn't
I
it?
always say to people that every day is a school day for me.
Yeah.
There isn't a day that goes by that I don't come up here and learn something new, see something different. There's different light, different colours, different seasons. It's such a joy. It's a continuous learning process.
And you must have really enjoyed when you came back reconnecting with the landscape. It must have brought back a lot of memories, but just the new areas that you've explored, it must have been a really fascinating time. I guess it continues to be an interesting
It
time.
was, yes, and is. When we were young, we mostly came to this part of the moor,
Yeah.
the northeast part of the moor. So Chagford, Gidley, Throwley, Belston, Oakhampton, that was mainly our patch,
Yeah.
with a few visits to Haytor and Bowerman's Nose. But as I've been guiding and wanting to explore more myself, I've done a lot more of the South Moor, explored more of the west as well.
Yeah.
And that's been really fascinating because there is a different feel, there's different history, different archaeology in some of these places. So yeah, even on my days off, I'll do a busman's holiday
Yeah.
and go for a walk. Yeah,
You literally live and breathe this place, don't
I do.
you?
I love it. Yeah.
So I think we're going to go and look at one of We're going to go to Kest Tor next?
Yes,
One
let's
of the
go to
great,
Kest
great
Tor.
tours of...
Or Castor, my lovely. That's what
Oh,
it's called.
right, I'm saying it all
Dartmoor
wrong.
dialect.
It's when you bring the foreigners down like myself. Isn't it? So, all right, and we're going to see it in the distance here, so should we carry on
Great,
our
let's
very
do that.
enjoyable walk? Come on, Sky! What a fantastic tale that was, and beautifully told by Emma. I could listen to her talk about Dartmoor all day. But before we rejoin Emma for the last part of our conversation, let's visit what is probably one of the most photographed houses on Dartmoor.
Nuns Cross is just over 4 kilometres south of Princetown, most of which you can drive. The most prominent feature as you come walking over the hill is of course the old farmhouse. There's frost on the ground, but it's a beautiful morning and the sun is just starting to rise over the horizon.
Good morning and welcome back, and this morning I have come to one of probably Dartmoor's most iconic houses, Nuns Cross Farm. It is a beautiful morning here. There's literally not a breath of wind, not even the grasses are moving. There's a little bit of frost on the ground. It's quite chilly. The sun has now come up. It took a little while to get past a bank of clouds, but it's cast a landscape in some glorious light. But let's go and have a look at Nuns Cross Farm, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Let me give you a bit of history of Nuns Cross Farm. So the land here was leased from the Duchy of Cornwall by a chap called John Hooper in 1870. Then in 1871 he moved in there with his family, where he lived well into his 90s. Apparently having a very good life. Imagine waking up to these fantastic views every morning. That's going to give you a boost and keep you going for a while, isn't it? And then unfortunately in his 90s he passed away, and then the house fell into a bit of disrepair. That was until, fortunately, a local school came along and turned it into a bunkhouse, which they use for their own activities. People use it for 10 tours, and also I know that Dartmoor rescue teams sometimes coordinate activities. So while the house is looking a little bit run down, it's good to know that someone has ownership of it and they're going to keep it going, because it'd be a real shame to see one of Dartmoor's most iconic houses disappear. But in case you're wondering why it's called Nuns Cross Farm, I'm going to head over there and tell you why. So I've come just a short distance up from the farm, which is just over there, to, funnily enough, Nuns Cross. Now this particular cross has quite a long history. Records date it back to at least 1240, where interestingly it wasn't actually called Nuns Cross, it was called Sywards Cross. Now why it actually changed from Sywards to Nuns Cross, not sure when that happened, but perhaps it's something to do with the fact that it's on the Abbot's Way here. But it's a big old cross. I've seen quite a few crosses on Dartmoor on my travels, but this is definitely the biggest and probably the oldest. Fascinating. Just check out that view. Isn't that fantastic? Imagine waking up in that house and seeing that every morning. Rolling hills, glorious light, though I do suspect it is Dartmoor. It's probably not like this every morning. But it's been fantastic here this morning. I'm going to leave the cows here to enjoy the view, and I'll see you again soon. Watching that reminds me that I must take the time to walk the Abbot's Way one day. I bet it's a cracking walk on a good day. Now, it's time to join Emma again for the final part of our conversation, as she tells me about her passion for Dartmoor and how it has become her work in life. So we've come to the very amazing Kest Tor. What can you tell me about Kest Tor?
Oh, Kest Tor's one of my favourite places. We used to come up here as children and clamber all over the rocks and go and look at the rock basin up on the top there. But what I love about the tours on Dartmoor, and of course there's lots of them, is that there's hundreds of them, firstly, and that they really reveal the bones of
Yeah.
mountains that were originally formed here 290 million odd years ago. And Kestor today on the map is Kestor, but it used
Yeah.
to be Castor,
Oh.
Castor, pronounced Castor in the Dartmoor dialect. And I love knowing the names of these places, the old names,
Yeah.
and how they might have been pronounced, because it gives you the story of a place. There isn't a myth or legend attached to this one, although there are to many other
Yeah.
Tors. One theory is that perhaps it was the cat's Tor, the lair of a
Oh,
big
okay.
cat. Who knows if that's true, but fun to think about it.
There's the stories of big cats on Dartmoor, isn't there?
There are stories of big cats on Dartmoor. There are some real
Yeah.
stories that happened in the 70s, and then there's lots of supposed sightings. I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything, but some very sensible friends of mine certainly are absolutely positive that they've
they've
seen
seen
something
something.
over the years. And of course, we used to have wolf and bear up here
Yeah.
thousands of years ago, or not even that long ago, actually. A few hundred years ago for wolf.
Not last week then, so I'm safe. But I mean, all this knowledge that you've been gathering as a child, and then through your explorations, you now like to, share that knowledge with people, because you've got this is your business now. This is not just a place you go for leisure. This is your entire life almost, isn't it?
It is my entire life. It doesn't make me lots of money, but I love it.
Yeah.
And I left my corporate career really to regain my health and sense of well-being. And when I came back to Dartmoor and started talking to my granny a lot more about the stories, and also my grandfather, who was guiding in the 50s, pony treks and walks, and I started to think, oh, maybe I could do something similar, but to do it in a way that really encourages people to explore, to enjoy, to learn about the place, and also to care for it. That feels really important. The more we understand a place and its traditions and culture and history, then we'll care about it more.
Yeah, so it's more than just bringing people to look at some nice locations and go on a
Absolutely.
guided walk.
Yeah, I feel very passionate about education and
So
health and
tell me
well-being.
about some of the things or you might typically do with the people that you take out onto Dartmoor.
A whole range of different things. One of my favourite things to do is to walk, not as a route march, perhaps as I used to do in my younger years, but to walk perhaps at a gentler pace and to notice more detail along the way, to really get a sense of the place and its history and the flora and fauna in tiny detail. So I do lots of different types of walks. Navigation training to help people stay safe, whatever the weather.
I might need to give you a call later. I'm not sure.
Stone circles walks, archaeology walks, walks focused on flora and fauna, myths and legends. I do a walk about pixies, another walk about witches, another one's about dragons on Dartmoor, wild swimming, a whole range of different things.
Also the healing aspect of being up in Dartmoor. Can you tell me a bit more about some of the experiences that people come up here in terms of developing a connection with the landscape? Yeah,
it's a really, well, for me that's one of the most important aspects of it, because I have tried to recover my health since coming back home. So firstly, the physical aspect of just gently walking through a beautiful landscape is very nourishing. Being in the woodlands, swimming in the rivers, it all feels very nourishing physically, and you get fitter and more active. But also that mental well-being, when there's a sense of spaciousness, from here, the direction I'm looking, I can't see another building or person or road or car, and it's a joy to feel that relaxation in my body. And then when we spend time in a place and truly get to know it, understand it, feel a sense of belonging and care for it, then yes, you can feel more attuned, more in connection with a
Because when we were up at the Standing Stone, I wasn't filming at the time, but when you went up there, I noticed and you went up and touched the stone. I think you gave it a little hug as well.
I'm a stone hugger.
But that's fine. It's not, but it was a sense of joy that was on your face. There was just this smile came across your face as you touched it, and I felt you had a real connection there and a real passion for the things that were around you.
I think there's, in our modern Western fast-paced, technologically advanced world, it's so easy to go through life not creating deep connections with things. And if you look at Indigenous people around the world, they know their area, their land, the animals, the plants, the flowers, the birds, they know them intimately. So for me, coming back to this place and touching the stone is, hello, old friend. You've been here thousands of years before me, and I'm just one tiny little cell in this enormous living, breathing being that is our planet. And I care very deeply that I feel more of it, and I'm in tune with the seasons and thinking about the people who came here, lived here, built these places and care for it today. There's custodians, of course, all over Dartmoor.
And the people that are attracted to Dartmoor, your clients, people who take out, do you get quite a variety, or is it just outdoor people, or do you find, are you still surprised by the types of people
Yes.
that come and see you?
It's a really good question. I get a huge variety of people. Certainly some people who are up for a good hike. I think one of my longest walks, for example, is a Stone Circles walk, and it's 15 miles in a day, and it's a good stomp. I get families coming up with little kids, and we do nature treasure hunts and animal tracking and farm visits. So trying to see more of the detail or understand the place. And then I get visitors who are absolutely blown away and had no idea what Dartmoor even was.
Yeah.
And often when they come from overseas, they think of a national park as being a government-owned place to visit. But here, of course, people live here, they work here, so they're just
It's a living, breathing places, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's part of for me, the joy of it.
And what do you think people take away, for first-time visitors? What do you think they take away once they've been to Dartmoor? What sort of things do you see, comments do you get back?
Lots of a whole range of different comments. The first one, typically, if it's a nice sunny clear day, it's how beautiful this place is. Of course, it can be thick fog and driving rain, but very rarely. Another comment is how much people are struck by the fact that people live here and work here. The livestock, the ponies that roam, they're semi-wild, of course, owned by farmers and commoners. They love the traditions and the stories and the fact that tours and places are named. They've all got names.
It must be a really rewarding job to have, even if you want to call it a job, but to have that experience of bringing people to Dartmoor, you must find it really rewarding and a great natural progression from your childhood through to your rediscovering Dartmoor to now that this is your life's work. It must be hugely rewarding.
Oh, that really touches me you said that. Thank you. It is really rewarding, and I do it first and foremost because I absolutely love being outdoors. I remember back to sitting in an office looking out of the window on a glorious sunny day thinking, what am I doing? And then my weekends or my evenings would be getting out and about. So the fact that I can do this for a job is a joy. It can be very hard work and, of course, very low income, but I'd rather do this any day than go back to that kind of a lifestyle. And also I feel very passionately about education. So I've said it several times, but the more we understand a place, the more that we understand that this is a working, living environment, then we care about it more. And the more that I see people joys at understanding more about a place, then I know they're going to care for it more when they go away, and they'll spread the word and tell other people how to behave when they're up here, hopefully as well. Well,
it's been quite fortunate that your grandmother had a place here and you managed to spend your childhood, because it's really set that destiny for your life. So I think it's a really nice tale to have told. And thank you so much for sharing all that with
pleasure.
me. It's been absolutely fascinating. We've had really nice conditions.
You've got to speak to the Dartmoor weather gods.
I'm going to speak to you more often. You can obviously sort it out. But thank you for sharing all that information, all those tales and all that information about your story about how you developed your life here in Dartmoor. It's been really
Thank you so much, Julian. Really great to meet you.
Really
thank
great
you.
to meet you too. I can't thank Emma enough for our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And please do take the time to check out Emma's website. I think going on one of Emma's guided walks would be a proper treat. Now, we're almost at the end of this episode, but we've got time for one more location, so let's head to the northern end of Dartmoor and Oke Tor.
I start my journey to Oke Tor by taking in the glorious view from Hart Tor. It's hard to beat a summer's evening on Dartmoor. As soon as I start walking, I'm in the Okehampton firing range. At this time of year there's no live firing, but it's always worth double checking. As I walk along the military road, I take in the expansive views which dominate this part of Dartmoor. After a short while, I turn off the military road and track directly to Oke Tor. Unlike most of the locations I visit for Discovering Dartmoor, this isn't my first visit to Oke Tor, but it will be the first time I make a proper stop at Oke Tor to see what I can discover. As I make my ascent towards Oke Tor, I can see the moon rising behind Steepleton Tor.
Welcome to Oke Tor. Now there are a few interesting things about Oke Tor. Perhaps some of the less interesting things are the military installations there. I think there's a lookout point there. And a bit more interesting is some of the geology of this tor. It's a great example of horizontal jointing, something which I discovered when I went to higher tor. But there's something else that I've learned about this tor that I want to have a look at. Why don't we go take a look? This is what I've come to look at. This is called bristle bent grass, apparently, and it's lodged itself to the southwestern side here of Oke Tor. But it's beautiful, especially during these summer months as it blows gently in the breeze. And I've photographed this grass many times before, but I've never really taken the time to learn what it's called. And it can be so beautiful, especially in the morning light or the evening light, as it catches across the top there and blows in the wind. It makes for some really nice photography, but it's just interesting to finally find out what it's called. Well, I've come up to the top of Oke Tor just to kind of take in some of the views, which of course are tremendous. This part of the moor, I love this part of Dartmoor, because really once you start walking past this bit and you're heading out to Steeperton Tor there, you really are getting out into the wilderness. You're really starting to get away from it. And the moon's just rising over there above Steeperton Tor. I've got Bellstone over there, east and west Meldon Tor, Yes Tor I think I can just about see in the distance. I've got these beautiful grasses blowing in the wind, bit of cloud in the sky. What a fantastic evening to be out. If you come to Dartmoor, you've just got to appreciate the geology. Even if you don't understand the detail and what happens with the processes to create these shapes and things like these horizontal jointing lines that you can see here, you just got to look at things like that and go, wow. I mean, I do wonder, did that rock fall over, or was this space carved out over the tens of thousands of years that this place has been here? It does make you wonder. It's really fascinating. I've had a fantastic evening up here on Oke Tor. Okay, I didn't quite get the sunset I was hoping for, but I still had a brilliant time just taking some photographs and admiring these views, because up here you've got views all around you. It's such a great place to come up here, just sit down, relax, and just sort of chill out and enjoy what Dartmoor has to offer. And talking of what Dartmoor has to offer, I've got to walk back to the car now, but I don't have to go back the way I came. I'm going to head along the ridgeline there towards Bellstone, and then just before I get there, I'm going to hook a left, and that'll give me a nice little loop back to the car. And if it gets too dark along the way, that moon is just coming up above that cloud there, and on a sort of reasonably clear night like this, I expect it'll give me quite a bit of light. But thank you for joining me, and I'll see you at the next location. Thank you for watching episode 3, but there's a lot to look forward to in episode 4, including I take a long walk along a disused tramway to the middle of nowhere, I take a look at some of Dartmoor's clapper bridges, I watch the mist roll along the Tean Valley, and I have a fascinating and educational conversation with a Dartmoor farmer. But before I go, if you want to support Discovering Dartmoor, remember the best way you can do so is by clicking on that like button, leaving me a comment and sharing the video. It would mean the world to me if you told everyone you know about this series. And remember to check out discoveringdartmoor.com, where you can order the Discovering Dartmoor zine or order prints to hang on your wall. You'll also find information on the talk that I've written about the photography and film production of Discovering Dartmoor. So if you have a camera club or a group that would like to know even more about this series, then there's a contact form in there as well. Please get in touch, I'd love to hear from you. Right, that's it. I'll see you in episode 4.